In order to grow closer to somebody, you have to share something with them. What do we really share with God? Are you getting me? Far removed from suffering in the next life will be the righteous who give their wealth so that they may grow. What are we supposed to grow towards? I'm really speeding things up here, you know. And yet the Quran insists that we're here for a purpose. We have not created the heavens and earth and whatever is between them in sport. If we wish to take a sport, we could have done it ourselves if God really needed to entertain himself. Since if we were to do that at all. But we put you here for a purpose. Do you think we created you purposely and that you'll not be returned to us? We did not create the heavens and earth and all that's between them in play. We did it for a purpose. Just tell me what it is. Just write it down like a theorem, I thought, you know? Like a thesis, you know? Okay, maybe nobody else will read it because it'll be so terribly boring. They won't understand it. I'll appreciate it. Write it down like a philosophical treatise, and I'll read it, I promise. You know, that's what I was thinking. But the Quran, you know, just wants you to discover these things within yourself, because everybody has a different question. Everybody has different issues. But how is it going to guide me to that? So how do we grow closer to God? And why do we grow closer to God? And what's the whole purpose of it all? And then I remember these verses. Yet there are men who take others besides God as equal, loving them as they should love God. But those who believe love God more ardently. Another verse, if you love God, follow me, and God will love you, and forgive your faults, for God is the forgiving, the merciful. And another verse, oh, you believe, any from among you should turn back from this faith, then God will assuredly bring another people he loves and who love him. And consistently the Quran will describe the true believer as ones he loves. He loves the giving. He loves the merciful. He loves the charitable. He loves, you know, the generous, the just, the kind, and so forth and so on. Okay, so we're here to grow to God and to develop a relationship of love with God, to turn to God in love, and he turns to us in love, and we form this very intimate relationship with God. So I wrote that down in my notebook. I really did. Develop relationship with God of love. Relationship with God of love. Okay? So I wrote that down. I said, okay. Does any of this make sense? Okay, I understand. You live a good life. You live a self-sacrificing life. You reach out to others. You help your fellow man. You make that your canons of living. It brings you peace and serenity. I buy that. 2, we're here to develop a relationship of love with God. If he's our creator, of course. I mean, why else would he create us? I mean, of course, wants to bring us closer to him, wants us to have this relationship with love. It makes sense. He's a loving God. We're going to be the objects of his love and vice versa. It makes sense. But then why put us here on earth? Are you following me? Why put us here on earth? I couldn't see it. And the sad thing was, I was at the end of the Quran. I still couldn't see it. And I came up empty. And that's the end of the speech. No. It's almost the end of the speech. Several people just walked out. But it's not quite the end of the speech, but it's almost the end of the speech. Because then it came upon me very quickly. But, you know, I was sitting there in Diamond Heights one day thinking, you know, I had finished the Quran. I couldn't find it, the answer. And I thought that the author made a brilliant attempt. He kept me glued to the Quran, the entire scripture. I finished it in about 2 months. I used to read it while walking up and down the hills of Diamond Heights. My friends that would see me thought I was nuts. Jeff, what are you doing? I'm reading. While walking? Yes. What are you reading? The Quran. Are you nuts? Well, in any case. But still, I came up empty. And that was a hollow victory, I'll be honest. I had no sense of satisfaction, even though I was an atheist. Because honestly, to be honest with you, this is not an argument or anything, but there were moments when I was reading the Quran, I was so sure that that voice reaching out to me was God. I felt like it had awakened a spirituality in me that I had long denied. I felt a connection to that voice. It was as if I was a child, a newborn child, and I was hearing my mother's voice, the voice I always knew when I was in the womb. And there were times that was so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. I remember crying one time when I read Surah Al-Duha. I cried for a good 15, 20 minutes after reading that passage, that surah. And I had spiritual moments when I felt, and this sounds strange, but I felt like I was in the presence of this most merciful, compassionate embrace. It was like I was being hugged, by this infinite hug. And it used to make me cry. And I used to fight it and try to step on it and think, what's psychologically happening to me here? God, get rid of this. This cannot be real. I don't even believe in you. Leave me alone. But like I said, there was no hollow victory. But I just felt that the author, as brilliant as he was, fell short where everybody must fall short in such a tense, and that is that infinite gulf between God and man and humanity. It's impossible to bridge that gulf. And so I gave up on the Quran. And I decided, here I am in San Francisco, the most romantic city in the world, and Montreal reminds me a lot of it, to tell you the truth. It's like being in San Francisco again. But one of the most romantic cities in the world, and I thought, the ratio of straight men to straight women was like 1 to 10 there. I decided it's time to stop thinking about all this theological stuff and enjoy the real purpose why I came to San Francisco. Honestly. So I decided to go for all the gusto, and here I was, trying to enjoy San Francisco, and this experience of the Quran just wouldn't leave. It was haunting. And one night I'm sitting in Diamond Heights watching my 2 favorite football teams, the Green Bay Packers and San Francisco 49ers, slug it out. And I love waiting for this game. They're both title contenders. And I'm watching the game, and then all of a sudden, a moment of epiphany. It doesn't always happen when you're concentrating on something else. It came to me, The Quran tells us a great deal about God and a great deal about man, and what man's purpose is and what God's purpose is. And I began to write down what it said. What does the Quran require of man? This whole thing is about the relationship of men to God, and men and humans, men and women, and humans growing closer to God. I thought, what does the Quran require of the true believer? How does it want him to grow? I began to think very rapidly. And I looked at my notes. The Quran wants us to grow in generosity, wants us to be generous, it wants us to be kind, it wants us to grow in mercy, it wants to grow us to grow in compassion, to develop and teach each other compassion. It wants us to be just, it wants us to be truthful. I began just writing down the list of everything I could think of that the Quran asks us to become. Truthful, kind, generous, bountiful, patient, what else? You could tell me, guys. Defenders of the weak and the oppressed, defenders of others, for the weak and the oppressed. Wisdom, right? What's that? Peaceful. Loving. Loving. In general, beautiful. Right? What the Quran describes as beautiful. This list goes on and on.